watching this game really had me wondering about cross-checking and how cross-checking in the NHL is like traveling in the NBA. Sure, it's technically against the rules, but it has to be really egregious to actually get called on it. Austin Matthews broke his stick cross-checking Roussel so hard. And we've seen in this season and the seasons before that they've really cracked down on all kinds of slashing, hooking, and holding. They'll call the most minimal times a player puts a stick on another player, unless you turn that stick sideways and drive it into another player's back as hard as you want. Jake was just cross-checking the hell out of a Leaf player and didn't get called. Roussel, as I was thinking this, actually did get called on a cross-check, although it really was more of a shove. He pushed a Leaf player down while neither one of them were near the puck. It was a pretty dumb play on his side of things, but we've also seen dozens and dozens of similar plays just like that before the call. Besser couldn't handle a pass behind the Leafs net to start off the game, losing the offensive zone presence. But then he scored on a power play right after and was one of the best players in the game. He's a difficult player for me because he obviously can shoot, he can move the puck pretty well. I really like that he came in and stuck up for another Canuck player when there was a scrum. Actually, it was after Ben got driven into the boards with a cross-check. But he just has a lot of really frustrating offensive zone giveaways. But he scores so much that he makes up for it. I don't know. It just seems like a frustrating player for me to watch. What do you think? I know a lot of people here love him. He's a pretty likable guy, and he's exciting when he scores. But remember, we're going to have to pay him $7 million, and this is not a team with a lot of cap room. And this is a team that should be trying to win a cup in the next 2 years. Jace Howerluck and what's his name? Michael McKinnis? These guys are great. Jace Howerluck showing really quick hands and offensive instincts in his first couple shifts. If you can fill out your bottom six with guys like this on the cheap, I mean, that's what a team should be doing, obviously. And instead, we're stuck with Roussel and Beagle and Sutter. I mean, Sutter and Roussel in this game, they're a negative impact. Every time they get out there, they give the puck away. Sutter blew so many short passes. I'm talking like 5 feet or less passes in the neutral zone in the breakout. He just was so off his game, blowing passes, and the Leafs are so quick, they counterattack, and it ends up becoming a terrible amount of pressure of the Leafs. Especially, a lot of times this happened, you'd have Sutter and Gaudette and Myers on the ice at the same time, and that is going to result in a hell of a lot of offensive zone pressure. Anytime that little ticker came up, Myers shift over a minute. Yeah, it's because if he doesn't get that puck out right away, he ends up just standing next to Demko. Brock did win a nice puck battle 1-on-3 to get into the offensive zone earlier on. In the second period, Gaudette, he was slowly chasing after the puck towards the Canucks zone. Lots of time, but he's going slow. He bobbles it, gives it away, and Toronto gets a chance. I mean, I guess Gaudette is still recovering, but he's really making it look difficult out there. He did have a few nice chances. He's one of those guys that looks like he's doing a lot because he's pretty quick. He created some chances. He had some nice little dangles. He was creating space, but he just really doesn't look all that dangerous. Watching Myers take neither the shooter or the passer as the Leafs scored like they were doing line rushes in practice, like they were in the All-Star game. All he did was stand in between them and then slowly bend over. Like, at least do an Edler and lay on the ice or something. Use that 6'6" frame to stop it. It's so frustrating because every GM is going to have hits and misses, all right? You're going to hit and miss on draft picks, trades, and signings. But when you miss on a high-priced, aging veteran signing, those are the mistakes you need to make the least of, because if a draft pick doesn't pan out, no big deal. You just trade him, you let him walk. People are always, like, you could trade Jake and somebody would give you something for him. You mess up on a trade for a lower-priced player, no big deal. You can just, you could even bury Sven Berchi, all these kind of things. But when you screw up and give Myers $6 million and a modified no trade clause, when everybody in the league knew this guy was a flash in the pan, Calder Trophy winner who has struggled with actually playing defense for his entire career. There's no surprise. He can make a good pass. He can move the puck up. I don't know why he just isn't a forward. I guess he's too slow to be a forward. Maybe if it was in the late 90s, he would have been a forward. In the dead puck era, he would have been a nice big guy going down there bruising everybody. Or Late 90s, he could have just grabbed people and held on to him and then been applauded that he can actually skate. But man, he has some good games, but for the most part, he is letting the Canucks get walked all over in the defensive end, taking terrible penalties. He had a rough one. It's so frustrating to watch him. Speaking of that time when Ben got cross-checked head first into the Canucks' own boards by Kerfoot, Ben stayed on the ice for an extra second, and Brock Besser came in with a nice friendly cross-check, but he accidentally speared Miller. Brock in the second period showed some real dirty dangles in the offensive zone. He was creating a lot of space. I haven't really seen a lot of offensive moves like that from Brock in the last few years. Although, the very next shift, Brock passed from behind the Canucks net to a Leaf in the slot for a ridiculous one-timer opportunity. Yikes, it's a good thing Demko has been playing unbelievable in these last few games. They put up some stat that showed he had a less than 2 goals against average and like a .940 save percentage, and he still had a losing record. Mark Michaelis, I thought, showed very good poise. He was skating the puck out of danger calmly. Nothing flashy, but not a liability. With the Leafs up by a goal, the Canucks were gifted a power play by Nylander with a delay of game. Brock scores with a floater that goes through Anderson just under his armpit for a very stinky goal. On the very next shift, the Canucks score again for a 3-2 lead with 10 minutes to go. Miller got a nice rebound chance off of a Brock play. Canucks got the lead momentum with back-to-back goals, but a few shifts later, you see the Canucks being dominated in their end for an extended length of time. At that time, I was just going to assume Myers is on the ice. My eyes look over. There he is, standing right by Demko. Brock had a 3-on-1 near the end of the game. Höglander in great position, and for some reason he passes it back to Schmidt, who got checked immediately. But Schmidt brought it back into the zone, passes over to Höglander, and he scores, rings it off the rear post. The refs tried to wave it off, but Höglander and the Canucks are already celebrating like Brett Hall scoring in the crease to defeat the Buffalo Sabres for the Stanley Cup. The goal stands. It was 4-2. The Canucks win. Let's go through their lines. Brock, like I said, he had his giveaways, but he looked more dangerous than he has in a while and actually got the results. Miller, man, he had a lot of struggles in the faceoffs, kind of pushing in early and looking pretty pissed off whenever he got waved out, but he had a great game, real strong. I love the play of these bottom six guys they brought in, Jace Howerluck and Michael McKearns. Sutter was just awful. Roussel, awful. Just negative results with these guys. Myers really, really struggled. Gaudette started to look a little more dangerous, but still just not actually producing anything. It's actually dangerous. Jake Virtanen looked like he still had some confidence after the last game. He does seem to play better when he's on a higher line, but as soon as Brock and Horvat and Miller were going, Green just started chucking those guys out in any kind of a combination that he could, and you see Virtanen kind of get dropped down. But the problem is, if you're going to have Horvat play with Miller, who's your second line center? You can't trust Gaudette, and it ends up being something like a Sutter out there. Höglander is still looking like Höglander makes things happen, and even if he had his goal, but for the most of the game, even if he's not getting a lot of dangerous chances, he still very consistently gets the puck deep. He wins puck battles because he just knows where to go, and even when he's not scoring, which I think he's going to figure out, and his points per game is just going to increase like crazy over the years because the guy is so bloody smart. He's just figuring out the game. We saw it where he started off the season scoring and then kind of struggled to get around defensemen. He learned that. He's one of those guys. He's like Pettersson. He's going to just keep increasing his game. Demko's solid. This team's got a lot of work to do because they're stuck with anchors of contracts, and it's not just like, look, I get it. You signed Sutter, Beagle, and Roussel because you wanted to insulate a terrible team who had young star players like Pettersson, Besser. Well, Besser's not that young. Yeah, Besser and Pettersson are young, and then a Hughes coming. I get it. You want to insulate them. You don't want them to end up like Edmonton or Buffalo having this losing culture and just getting caved in. And those players got a lot better, a lot faster than you thought. Hughes was good as soon as he came onto the ice for the Canucks as a young rookie. Pettersson was dominating in the first 2 seasons. So you're stuck with those contracts. But then to immediately go out there and get Myers, pay him more than anybody, and get exactly what Myers does, really shocking. It makes you think, did Aquilini want this? I'm starting to feel like Benning is the assistant GM to Aquilini, who's like the president of hockey ops. Benning said, and take this how you will, in his little press conference, that he has day-to-day contact with Aquilini, and that their plan right now is we're just going to see how it goes. We got a lot of time for the trade deadline. No, you don't. There's only like 6, 8. There's only like something like 6 or 8 games after the trade deadline. So any team that's going to bring in a player around then has to wait for quarantine before they can even practice with them or play a game with them. People are going to want to make moves before then. You need to get on this. You need to realize the spot you're in right now, you're not making the playoffs. It doesn't. I mean, a lot of things would have to crumble all around them. Toronto's a lock. I mean, Montreal, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton. It's the Canucks and Ottawa are going to be the ones on the outside. You need to start making moves, and it just sounds like this bloody team has been so reactive in the last few years, and it's. I mean, what was Benning saying? Oh, we're going to wait and see how it goes. It's going to get a little better. I don't know. But then, I see this on Twitter. Somebody brought up a great point. If your plan was to wait and see and we're going to be competitive in a couple of years, why'd you trade everything to bring in Toffoli and then lose him? That makes that whole sequence of events is just insane. You gave up good, like future prospects, future assets for Toffoli and then didn't sign him. Who does that? Like teams on the cusp of winning a Stanley Cup do that. The Canucks were definitely not. To bring in Miller, you bring in Miller. That's a window. We're trying to win now, and he's been great. I mean, I think burn your first round picks. If you can bring in a player like Miller and you give up a first round pick, do it every single time, because first round picks, they can end up like Jake. They can become a Besser who is better than where he was taken, or they can be a Jake where it's definitely not better, a lot worse from where they were taken. This team, it's so frustrating because you see that they have Pettersson and Hughes and Demko, and Miller is a great piece, and you got like a character guy like Pearson in there, and they're able to put all these nice parts around him, and they're just so stuck with the mistakes they've made, and it's 7 years in. But in a year or two, a lot of those contracts will be off the books except for Myers. If Myers gets taken by Seattle, and he could, that would be a huge benefit for the Canucks. Will they do that? Hopefully they leave him exposed. I think the way his contract is set up, he has a modified no trade clause, but he can be claimed. So I'd jump for joy if Myers was taken by Seattle. What do you think? Bye.